We booked a whirlwind 3 days to celebrate my birthday, back to where I first fell in love with international travel. We're in London, baby.
London, baby!
We spend time with the Beatles, we visit some famous masterpieces, meet up with some seriously old Egyptian relics, enjoy afternoon tea, catch up with some local friends, and are wowed by a couple of live shows and a fancy meal. Come along as we toast another year around the sun.
Welcome back to Find Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way.
If you're new here, welcome. I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. As full-time travelers, we try to build our schedule around special events to make sure we're in the places we want to be when certain things are happening. So we adjusted our trip to Serbia to make sure that we could have time in London on a very special day, Judy's birthday. It's one of her favorite cities.
My choices were somewhat limited because we needed to be outside the Schengen zone. But London is one of my all-time favorite cities, and although we had been here 6 other times, I knew it would be the greatest place to celebrate my birthday. Plus, it was on our way back to the US, where we were going to be spending some time with family, so it really wasn't even out of our way.
We had to get to the US somehow, and it just was convenient that London is a path with airplanes. They just like to go through London somehow.
London is an expensive place to visit for full-time travelers, so we knew we could never spend a month here. But it was worth the splurge for just a quick birthday trip.
So even though we just spent 3 days here, we did rack up some costs, and we'll tell you about those at the end. We arrived on a Monday afternoon and stayed at the City Sleeper at the Royal National Hotel near Russell Square.
Prices were high at this time of year, so I mistakenly thought that this might be too far off the beaten path or not a great place. But I was happy to be wrong on both counts.
We didn't want to waste a moment of our time in London, so we ditched the hotel, grabbed a bite, and headed off to visit some of our favorite areas of town.
We first wandered around Covent Garden, which is just a lovely part of London. It's got great restaurants and usually some sort of entertainment. And its Market Hall building is always abuzz with activity. And although it's a French restaurant, we always love stopping by L'Autoré for a macaron.
Next, we meandered around Victoria Embankment Gardens and walked along the water. When we were in Egypt, we had heard about the artifacts that had made their way to the UK, but it was still a thrill to happen upon what's called Cleopatra's Needle, which is from Alexandria as far back as 1450 BC. It's the oldest man-made monument in London.
Before it got too dark, we made our way to see Big Ben, the Houses of Parliament, and Westminster Abbey.
We even stopped outside Sherlock Holmes' pub, which is one of the first places we saw the first trip we were in London, and with dust falling around it, it made quite the scenic view.
It was built in 1736, and although it's not near the Baker Street address of the famous fictional detective, it is located near to many of the landmarks that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle referenced in his books. Today is my birthday, and it was off to an incredible start.
Found a local restaurant, ended up getting some coffee, some Eggs Benedict, and meeting up with 2 couples that were the nicest to chat with.
Our conversation was so enjoyable that we ended up taking it outside with Lauren and Ron and talked about all things full-time travel. They used to live in the US, but now they're making their home in Valencia, Spain. It was fun to exchange stories with other people who love to travel as much as us.
Next, we were off to the National Portrait Gallery to catch Paul McCartney's exhibition of his personal photographs taken from 1963 to 1964, when the Beatles' career was first starting to skyrocket.
When Kevin and I first met, one of the things that really drew us to one another was that we were both huge Beatles fans.
In fact, for my 40th birthday party, Judy bought me tickets to the Paul McCartney concert in Dallas, and it was a huge surprise and a wonderful connection.
But seeing Paul McCartney's collection of photographs from the early 1960s was really pretty special too.
After spending some quality time with Paul and the rest of the Beatles, we went around the corner to the National Gallery to see some of our favorite masterpieces.
I know that there is so much new to explore, but in certain places I'm just drawn to familiar territory. I also think that this incredible art deserves a little bit of my attention whenever we're in town. Does anybody else feel that way about art? Let us know in the comments. I'm always in awe of all of the talent that's accumulated in galleries like this one. I had such a hard time cutting costs on this trip. I love Fortnum and Mason for tea, but when I heard Ochre, the restaurant inside the National Gallery, had a Monet afternoon tea, and it was less expensive, I booked it straight away.
It came with the typical fare of tea, crustless sandwiches, scones, and a variety of desserts, but it also included a signature cocktail.
Unfortunately, all of the desserts were cloyingly sweet.
And the cocktail was practically undrinkable.
The teapot it was served in was nice, though.
We had gone to a Van Gogh themed tea in 2021 at a different tea shop, and it exceeded our expectations.
It didn't diminish the specialness of the day, but it just didn't live up to the hype.
That's true.
My birthday wouldn't have been complete without a visit to the theater. When Kevin and I first got married, we both realized that we had a love of the arts, and we've always managed in every city that we've been in to spend as much time as we could going to plays.
So London has a lot of variety of plays, and this time we chose Moulin Rouge, which had some amazing dancing, fabulous choreography, and they kind of engaged the audience a bit too.
It exceeded my expectations, so it was a great finish to a wonderful birthday.
Although, the day did not end there. We were all comfortable in our hotel room when what happened?
The fire alarm went off, and it kept going off, and people were checking outside. Do we need to really go downstairs? Surely it's just a false alarm and it'll go off any minute, but it didn't.
Well, happy birthday.
Well, I thought maybe we're throwing a big surprise party, and
Yeah.
this is how you were doing it.
Surprise, false alarm, and everyone's supposed to just run outside.
Well, I thought there was going to be a big cake out here.
Yeah, there's no cake, sorry. But you get a loud noise, that good? It's like the worst party horn ever.
Yes.
So we got dressed, went downstairs, went outside, and the hotel we're staying in is kind of one of those, it's a big hotel, but the section we're staying in was a special version of the hotel that really wasn't connected. There's one door you had a badge through. And then we found out that once we were out in the street and everyone was piling back, I mean, lots of floors, like thousands of people were going in at one time. We couldn't get back in or couldn't figure out how to get back into our special section. So we ended up having to go through all these hallways around the main hotel. It was not exactly the end of the day. It took us probably an hour to get through this whole fire drill. I felt so bad. It's your birthday, honey. Have a special fire drill.
Well, it was kind of funny. It's as though this hotel was built by sections, and so they were each self-contained, and sometimes you went through one section and you just couldn't get back. You could go out, but you couldn't come in.
Well, there were fire doors that were closed in. It's like, this can't be happening. Otherwise, it was a great day, right?
What would a birthday be without a little bit of drama? And thankfully, it was just a false alarm.
Yeah, and drama in London is better than drama anywhere else, right?
Totally agree with that.
On our final day in London, our first stop the day after cappuccinos, of course, was to the British Museum. You need to book your entrance time, but there's no fee for the tickets. Outside of admiring the beautiful architecture of the building, our mission was to see some of the 10,000 Egyptian artifacts that weren't in Egypt when we visited.
Of course, we had to spend time with the Rosetta Stone as well. Likewise, when we visited Greece, we saw replicas of some things or empty spaces because the antiquities had been acquired by the British Museum.
All the missing friezes that we wanted to see were in Athens. Just look at how many.
And we also wanted to stroll through the Roman antiquities as well.
There are some intricate mosaic pieces, so don't forget to look up and see them. I'd reached out at the last minute to someone that I had worked with in my last job before we started traveling full-time, and miracle of miracles, Sue was able to meet up with us, and it was great to introduce her to Kevin and also spending time listening to her share about some of her travel adventures.
Normally, we'd do a special birthday dinner, but Launceston Place is closed on Tuesdays, so we opted for a celebratory lunch there instead. It all worked out because it was too expensive for us to both do dinner and the plays that we had planned.
Kensington is a lovely part of the city, and the architecture is stunning.
The unconventional menu was made of frosted glass, and you could choose the courses you wanted. Or, as in our case, we blanked out everything except the chef's tasting menu.
Every course was more impressive than the previous one.
Which is a reduction of bones and white wine.
Oh, interesting. And then what is over the top to give
It's
the...
black radish as well, but it's
Oh,
like
good.
cut it very thin.
Finish with the pork jus, so the
They
dash.
have a TV so they can see how the chefs are cooking and everything.
And you've got also some chips in the middle to share with a vinegar powder on top.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
There was one course that fell a little flat, but the series of desserts were incredible.
The edible molded lemon was a showstopper. The cute lemon meringues were fun with their hanging gummy snakes, and the chocolate ganache cake with a birthday candle was
That's
sublime.
sweet. They were closed yesterday, so now we do our birthday celebration today. Birthday girl, you can make a wish.
Big wishes.
Big wishes. Love you, sweetie.
Love you too.
The dessert flavors were all perfectly balanced and were a sharp contrast to the overly sweet desserts at Ochre.
It was a nice surprise that Farida, a colleague that I used to work with when Kevin and I lived in Houston, were able to meet up for a beverage and a quick hello. Farida was so kind to accommodate our schedule, and her husband was pretty generous as well because he had just been recovering from surgery, so he was fine with Farida chatting with us and not rushing home to tend to him.
Ian McKellen is one of our favorite actors, so when we heard that his two-man play, Frank and Percy with Roger Allam, had been extended at the Other Palace Theater, we had to get tickets.
It's a smaller theater, but we were stunned when we saw that our seats were only 5 rows from the stage, and if we really stretched out our hand, we could touch the actors.
But don't worry, we didn't. There was no assault on Sir Ian.
There could have been, though.
We tried. They blocked us again. It didn't. Unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to London all too quickly because we had an early morning flight to head back to the US to visit family.
Even though we're full-time travelers, spending time with family is still really important to us. And we knew that the next stop was going to be to Japan and then other parts of Southeast Asia. So before too much time had elapsed, it was time to check in and just spend time with the people we love. Before we talk about prices, we're excited to share that we've started our own absolutely free community forum that we are calling La Familia. You can ask questions about trip planning and all things related to travel there. We're also giving you a chance to peek behind the scenes and are offering a bunch of other perks we're calling gelato levels if you decide you want to help support us financially as well. A video with the details is linked in the description below.
Our quick 3-day trip to London did have some cost to it, so let's break those down.
Our city sleeper at the Royal National Hotel was $729.23 for 3 nights, or $243.08 per night. It was an expensive time of year to visit, but you can get it cheaper at other times of the year.
The Paul McCartney exhibit at the National Portrait Gallery was £24.50 apiece.
One of the things we love about the UK is that their art museums and certain other cultural activities are free. There was no cost for the National Gallery or the British Museum, so we made a donation in honor of my birthday.
Afternoon tea at Ochre was £123.75.
This price included an automatic 12.5% gratuity.
Moulin Rouge was £176 for 2 Royal Circle tickets.
The chef's tasting menu at Launceston Place was £72 apiece.
Close-up seats at Frank and Percy at the Other Palace Theater were £76 apiece.
I want to thank everyone for all of the birthday wishes that I received. It really made my birthday super special. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you aren't subscribed, we hope you'll do so. We are excited to be bringing you episodes starting next week from Japan.
And check out findinggina.com, where you'll find lots of articles and more information about our episodes, and our La Familia forum, where you can talk and share about travel.
Until next time.
Until next time.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'd love it if you'd... We hope you've enjoyed this episode and that you'll consider... We hope you've enjoyed this episode and that you'll consider...
You drink?
No. Got some whiskey?
I do.